In King Kalisia's kingdom, men were mandated to sit on the floor of the village public square before a crowd and cry non-stop for an hour a day before their wedding as a pledge of their submission to their wife, while women were banned from showing any sign of weakness publicly. Once upon a time, in the ancient African kingdom of Mbamili, lived a very powerful and beautiful woman known as Kalisia. Kalisia was the daughter of King Wankwo, a very wise and benevolent ruler who loved his daughter Kalisia so much. Kalisia was King Wankwo's biggest confidant, business advisor, prodigy in politics, and master strategist. Everyone in the kingdom of Mbamili respected Kalisia as much as they respected King Wankwo, as she was very wise and great at all she does. King Wankwo would sometimes jokingly tell Kalisia that she had the mind of a king but was trapped in the body of a woman, and Kalisia would giggle. Kalisia's joyful life, however, ended sooner than she thought when her father suddenly took ill. On King Wankwo's deathbed, he summoned his council of elders and told them that he properly raised Kalisia on how to rule them. They should crown her queen when he dies, as she would guide their village to greatness. The elders promised him that they would do so. However, immediately King Wankwo passed on, his council of elders tossed his wishes aside and crowned his incompetent, arrogant younger brother, known as Ikechukwu, king, with the excuse that tradition demanded for a male ruler and not a woman. King Ikechukwu squandered the kingdom's wealth, alienated the kingdom's allies, and turned the once proud kingdom of Mbamili into a laughing stock. Kalisia, on the other hand, was humiliated greatly by her uncle, King Ikechukwu. She was stripped of all her inheritance and even exiled to a very distant village so as to avoid any chances of her ever becoming a threat to King Ikechukwu's throne. In exile, Kalisia toiled as a servant and was subjected to severe torment and torture just to survive, including forceful entries into her body by some men. Kalisia's pains fueled her determination to one day reclaim her father's legacy. Kalisia spent 10 years in exile, rebuilding herself in the shadows. She learned different trades, forged alliances with many powerful women, merchants, and amassed so much wealth for herself. Kalisia also learned how to fight and greatly mastered the use of spear and swords. When news reached Kalisia in exile that King Ikechukwu had passed on, she returned to Mbamili with the formidable female army she raised in exile and conquered the kingdom of Mbamili and crowned herself the new ruler of Mbamili. Kalisia decided to flip the script of rulership in her kingdom immediately she took the throne. First, she introduced herself to the people of Mbamili as King Kalisia, the first and only female king of Mbamili. King Kalisia's reign was very radical and ruthless. She ruled Mbamili like a god. No one dared question her orders, or else the person was ready to leave earth before their God-given time. Driven by the bitterness of her past and her determination to avenge her father's betrayal and humiliation by his people, especially by his council of elders, King Kalisia decided to emasculate men by taking away all their pride. First, no woman in Mbamili was allowed to show weakness or cry publicly, as opposed to the men who were now mandated by their new tradition to sit on the floor of the village public square before a crowd and cry non-stop for an hour a day before their wedding as a pledge of their submission to their wife who paid their groom price and appreciation to her for deeming them worthy to allow them take up their last name. Men were prohibited from going to school. Reading and writing were for women only, while men were confined in their homes, forced to cook, clean, and care for their children. Women were raised as brave warriors who went to war. Men were prohibited from inheriting properties, lands, and titles. Men were to serve their sisters and mothers and hope on them to cater for them with their family's properties. Any man found with any valuable property would be forced to surrender such to the community and would be sold to any woman who wanted to have him as a concubine or a slave. Men were also prohibited from looking into the eyes of a woman when speaking to her. Any man who defaulted would be flogged mercilessly at the village square by the woman he stared into her eyes. Despite all the rights King Kalisia conferred upon women, however, she remained the supreme ruler who had the ultimate power above everyone, both the men and the women. No man or woman dared speak to King Kalisia eyeball to eyeball. You must stand face down whenever you are before King Kalisia or you see her passing by, else you will be punished severely or even exiled from the village of Mbamili. King Kalisia's reign was marked by great fear. She was a symbol of vengeance and great bitterness. The kingdom of Mbamili, nonetheless, immensely prospered materially under King Kalisia, as she was a master strategist when it came to business and amassing wealth for her community. King Kalisia refused to take a husband, but never went a night without a male consort in her bed. King Kalisia had a consort prison where the men who warmed her bed every night were kept for proper medical examination and hygiene grooming before getting an invite to King Kalisia's private chambers. To qualify to be kept in waiting at the king's consort prison, you must win a duel with another man so as to prove that your physical health was in order for the task ahead in the king's bedroom when it gets to your turn. King Kalisia, not long after, soon became very fond of the youngest amongst all the men that had ever warmed her bed. The young man's name was Chukwuma. Chukwuma was barely 18 years old when he took the contest and won a man who was 20 years older than he was. His victory not only shocked King Kalisia, but made her heart to start beating for the young man. King Kalisia cried for 3 days and confined herself in her bedroom without speaking to anyone when she confirmed that she was starting to fall helplessly in love with Chukwuma. She came out from her confinement more brutal and wicked than she had ever been, as she was not allowed to entertain any form of weakness, not even in the form of love. To kill the love she felt for Chukwuma, King Kalisia would have her guards torture Chukwuma greatly for absolutely no reason, so that he would fear for his life and run away from Mbamili. Chukwuma, however, never left Mbamili, despite advices from many well-wishers urging him to flee Mbamili, including his parents. The more King Kalisia dealt with Chukwuma, the more she fell deeper in love with him secretly. Soon, tongues began to whisper as most of the men in waiting at the consort prison were getting tired of waiting, as King Kalisia wasn't calling for them every night again like she used to. She would deal with Chukwuma during the day and have him in her bed almost all night. Not long after, King Kalisia discovered that she was pregnant. To avoid anyone laying paternity claims on her child, she started inviting other men in her consort prison randomly again till her pregnancy started to show. The night King Kalisia's child was born, a great tragedy struck the kingdom of Mbamili earlier on in the day. It happened that King Kalisia, whose bedroom desires was suddenly on the high due to her pregnancy hormones, invited Chukwuma to her chambers earlier on in the day. After having Chukwuma that day in her usual master servant dominant way, Chukwuma, in a fit of rage and jealousy for being tossed aside by King Kalisia when she became pregnant, summoned the courage to look into her eyes and said to her, I may be young, King Kalisia, but I know a woman in love when I see one. You didn't have to subject me to all these tortures because you want to suppress what you feel for me. I want you to know that I love you too, and that is why I refuse to run away, even when I knew you wanted me to do so you won't feel weak around me anymore. As for the child in your belly, I know she is mine. May the heavens not allow her heart be anything like yours, King Kalisia. Thank you for listening to me. Those words felt like a sharp razor cut in King Kalisia's heart as she immediately summoned her guards to seize Chukwuma and tie her up at the village square. Chukwuma's parents and some other well-wishers pleaded with King Kalisia to show mercy upon him, but all their pleas fell on deaf ears. A few minutes before Chukwuma was sent to the great beyond, King Kalisia walked up to him and whispered into his ears, You were so right, Chukwuma. You are my weakness. Chukwuma's eyes lit up with a little joy, but the joy was cut short as King Kalisia continued with her whispers. My strength matters more to me than my weakness, young man. I hope you remember this day in your next life and know that some things are better left unsaid. Our child will hear about you, Chukwuma, and I will keep the memories of you close to my heart. Goodbye, my lover. King Kalisia cried for many hours in her room after the executioner did his job on Chukwuma. The pains made her go into emergency labor that night, and she gave birth to her precious daughter, Nwanyi Bunwa. Chukwuma's death and the birth of Nwanyi Bunwa brought mixed chaotic feelings in Mbammili. The fear the people had for King Kalisia went over the roof once more after watching what she did to Chukwuma, whom they all secretly knew was her favorite person, despite all the tortures she was meting out on him. And for the next 25 years, everyone in the kingdom of Mbammili respected themselves and did as they were commanded to do in all circumstances. The only person in the kingdom of Mbammili who, though was a very respectful person, was not afraid of King Kalisia was Princess Nwanyi Bunwa. It was as if King Kalisia's late father and her lover Chukwuma returned to life inside Princess Nwanyi Bunwa's body. Princess Nwanyi Bunwa was so wise beyond her age and was her mother's weakness. King Kalisia adored her a lot, but never displayed it publicly, and Princess Nwanyi Bunwa understood. One Saturday evening, King Kalisia returned from hunting with her female warriors, feeling so weak. By morning, her body was burning up and greatly deteriorating. None of all the experienced healers that were summoned to heal King Kalisia could decipher what was wrong with her. When it dawned on King Kalisia that it was her ancestors who were trying to call her home, she summoned Princess Nwanyi Bunwa, who was to succeed her throne. Holding Princess Nwanyi Bunwa's hands, King Kalisia visibly wept for the first time before her 25-year-old daughter. My daughter, began King Kalisia, I built our kingdom the way you met it upon your birth to honor my late father, who was your grandfather, and to punish those who betrayed his trust and treated me badly upon his death. In my quest for justice, however, I became what I hated. For 30 years now, I have let my pain and anger dominate me. Though I have achieved greatness and immense wealth, it all came at a huge cost. In Kalisia paused, and with a trembling voice she continued, Do not rule with bitterness like me when I am gone. Nwanyi bụ nwa. The men of Mbamili have suffered enough, and I have no idea on how to make what I started stop. I trust your wisdom, however, my child, as you have in you my late father Nwankwo's spirit, and the spirit of the only man I had ever fallen in love with, and still love, even after many years of his death, which was your father Chukwuma. Please, do what I couldn't do, my child. Restore balance to this land. Let men and women walk side by side, and not one above the other. In Kalisia's words, moved Princess Wanyi Bunwa to tears as she hugged her mother tightly while promising to do better. The kingdom of Mbamili silently mourned the passing of King Kalisia for many days, while whispering and wondering what Queen Wanyi Bunwa's reign would be like. Under Queen Wanyi Bunwa's reign, the kingdom of Mbamili found a new fair balance. Things like education became open to men and women again. Inheritance was now being shared equally by all genders. The men and women of Mbamili, in a nutshell, started working together in equality in building a better and stronger kingdom for themselves. Queen Wanyi Bunwa, unlike her mother, chose herself a husband whom she loved and allowed him to rule alongside her as a prince, not a king. King Kalisia's legacy stood strong for many generations to come as the story of the woman who dared to defy the tradition where patriarchy ruled with iron fists to a world where matriarchy ruled with iron fists. This is the end of my story. The moral of this story is that revenge is a poison. You hurt yourself when you try to hurt back the people that hurt you, like King Kalisia did. In her bid to avenge what was done to her by her father's people, she ended up living a very bitter and miserable life, irrespective of the power and fear she was commanding. Lastly, the world would be a better place if all genders learned to respect and adore one another without any gender seeking to hurt or dominate the other. Thank you for watching.